What up, players? It's Warboss Tay up in this mug. Today I'm going to be showing you how I paint this Primaris Initiate from the Primaris Crusader squad. It's an amazing kit. I'm actually really enjoying painting it because you've got a mixture of scout guys and regular Primaris intercessor looking guys that have this tabard across them, and there's so many great bits, and you can really make them look really cool. So it was just announced today too that the Black Templars are getting a new combat patrol, and it's really exciting times to be a Black Templar player. So putting this guy down with the rest of the Black Templar miniatures that I've painted for this squad, I've got the 4 neophytes, which are like the scout guys. I've got the sword brethren, who's like their leader, and now that these two are finished, I have one more Primaris intercessor initiate guy with this chainsword and the bolter. So that means I've got 2 more miniatures, 2 more intercessors to paint, and then my squad will finally be finished. But I had a really great time painting this miniature, and the more Black Templars I paint, the more used to the whole process I get, the more I'm streamlining a lot of my steps. So I hope you enjoy this painting guide. If you're not painting Black Templars, if you're working on something else, I hope you enjoy hanging out with me while I talk about the different techniques that I use. Maybe something that I'm using like the hazard stripes or the dry brushing is going to be of interest to you. And I hope you also check out the Golden Maple set that I am linking in the description. It's 4 detail brushes and 3 dry brushes, and I really love it. I think every painter should have these 7 brushes in their collection. I haven't used the larger ones yet. I'm going to pretty soon, but use the promo code WART, W-A-R-T. It'll give you 10% off of the brush set in the description. So here we go. I sprayed everything in black, and then I'm taking my smallest dry brush that I've got in my Golden Maple set. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use Corvus Black to dry brush in a zenithal pattern, which means going from above and dry brushing the paint downwards so that it's leaving everything in the bottom and in the recesses this nice dark black color, while this Corvus Black, this beautiful dark grayish black, is showing up on all of the curves, all of the top areas, anywhere where a light would naturally be shining or reflecting off of the armor, and just dry brush the heck out of it. And when you're done with it, you don't really have to let it sit for too long. Although most of my videos I would want you to do like a batch painting, like let the coat dry while you move on to the rest of the squad. Doing a dry brush with Corvus Black is it's a pretty short amount of time that you're going to need to wait. Now I want to apologize because I'm using my wife's iPhone 11 while I'm waiting to upgrade my own iPhone. So if you're not able to see all of the detail, then I apologize for that. But this is basically Dark Reaper. I'm going to explain to you everything that I'm doing. If there's anything that really needs to be looked at, then I will let you know so that you can, if you need a pause. I don't think there's any reason to pause through this video and rewind it. It's pretty simple. You're just following all of the armor plates, looking for all of the edges to paint this Dark Reaper on. Now I'm using a detail brush. It's not this super fine detail brush. It's one of the larger ones, and you can get some really, really nice coverage with it. Dark Reaper is a beautiful color to paint over Corvus Black, and it's starting to add a little bit of that bluish tinge, which is what we're going for in this triad of colors. Starting from the deepest Chaos Black, then that Corvus Black dry brush to give you a good canvas to work off of. Now we're picking out the edges and all of the raised areas and the curves that would naturally be reflecting light with this Dark Reaper. Now I'm going to be going on to Thunderhawk Blue, and this is when I'm going to be switching over to my size 2/0 Golden Maple brush. It's the fine detail brush because I'm really going to be focusing on sharp edged points, the most highest areas that are going to be reflecting the light, fingers, like the very sharpest edges on the armor. And what you're really doing is you're creating the highest end of the spectrum where light would be reflecting in this light grayish blue color. Now you might notice that I'm using these bluish tones to highlight black, and that's because I think the Black Templars would be so meticulous about their war gear, and they would really want to take care of it, shine it, make sure that it's all oiled between battles. Even if they're on Crusade, I feel like the monastic nature of the Black Templars, the fanaticism, the devotion to how they make war, and their very existence and their lives would give them the chance to work on their armor and make it look very nice and clean and deep dark black like this, where it would shine up to a nice blue. And again, we're picking out the sharpest, most pointiest and raised areas and edges. I'm using a power fist, but you might have your initiate using a chainsword, in which case you would just paint the fingers and the raised knuckles on that the same way you would do the one with the hand holding the bolt pistol. Now I'm painting the raised area on the round cap, as well as the curve where the little vent at the center of the backpack is, and just dragging that color across very thinly, building the colors up from Dark Reaper to Thunderhawk Blue. Now we're going to be going on to Rakarth Flesh, one of my favorite colors in the Citadel range because you can use it for a variety of applications. In fact, I think every painter should have a workable pot of Rakarth Flesh in their collection at hand, ready to go. It's terrific for highlighting colors without making it look washed out, and it's also a great color for so many things: cloth, parchment, skulls, bones, candles, and just highlighting skin colors, Caucasian skin tones. It's terrific. So it also has great coverage as well, and as I'm painting it, I'm making sure that I don't put it on too thick. I've got my wet palette next to me, I've thinned down my paint, and I'm just painting it on as smoothly as possible, spreading the color so it doesn't clump up in any area, just making sure you get that paint moving and that you're using a thin coat. Now I'm going to be using my favorite gold color. It's Metal and Alchemy from Scale Color Necro Gold. It's a terrific, deep, dark gold with green undertones. It makes it look like ancient gold, like an old gold, basically. And I love using it for evil models like Soulblight Gravelords, Vampire Counts. It works terrific for those, but also for these miniatures as well. The good guys, the Black Templars, it looks very like revered, and it's terrific. You don't have to do a wash or highlight. You can if you want to, but really the properties of the Necro Gold are such that it just looks terrific after one application. All right, now we're moving on to the shoulder pads. I think this is the most frustrating and trying and wearing on my patience part of these models is doing the shoulder pads. It's really a chore because you're going to be moving back and forth between the white colors and the black colors, the colors that you're using for white and black, because you can see I'm getting some of the Celestia Gray onto the black cross. I'm getting some of it onto the rim of the shoulder pad. So this whole process is just a back and forth like tennis match between using the gray and then cleaning it up in the black, and then using a white to highlight the gray, and then going again and cleaning up the black, because you're not only cleaning up the rim or the edges of the shoulder pad, but you're also going to have to pick out the detail on that Black Templar's cross in the center. Make sure you don't have any white on the cross, and make sure you don't have any black on the white shoulder pad area. The good thing about this is that Celestia Gray is a beautiful color. It covers really nicely. Terrific coverage. It doesn't spread out, it doesn't dilute too much. Even if you water it down, thin down your paint on your wet palette, which you should be doing anyways, it goes on really smooth and really nicely. Now I built this model with that chest shield protection. All right, moving on to the Purity Seal and all the other red areas on this model, I'm going to be using this Mephiston red color. You could start with corn red too if you want to give a deeper, darker red base coat and then bring it up. But basically, if you're painting your Black Templars, you're going to be using these as an alternative to the bone colored parchment of the purity seals. I think it looks great when you've got these red strips of cloth and purity seal parchment things hanging off of your marine, and then you've got the white script work. You really need a good brush, and that's why I really highly recommend getting the Golden Maple series. It's just so easy when you have a sharp tipped detail brush and you take care of it. It lasts you a long time, and I can't speak highly enough about it. It's how I do all of my detail work now. All right, I'm also going to be painting on the Power Fist the Templar cross there in red. I think I do the eye lenses and then the bolter casing as well. If you're not using a chain or Power Fist, you've got the chain sword, then you would do the chain sword casing in red, as well as the pommel and the hand guard. I think I'm also gonna black out the color as well for the shield on this Marine's chest in a quartered pattern, black and red. So you can kind of see how I'm reaching all of the areas. It's really helpful to have a painting handle if you are painting infantry size model. Games Workshop's painting handle is like perfect for that. As long as the base isn't too large, you can turn your model around and get it at all different angles. If you're not going to use an actual painting handle, you could also use a cork, a prescription pill bottle, an empty paint bottle from Games Workshop. Just put a little bit of sticky tack or blue tack on the flat side of it. And it's anything really that you can comfortably wrap your fingers around is going to help you a lot in the long term, especially after you're painting armies and armies. So there you can see I took the color and I blacked out a quarter pattern red in the upper left and bottom right. Now I'm going to take my lead belcher. I'm going to be painting the chains that are wrapping the bolt pistol around the Marine's hand or wrist. I'm also going to be painting the buckles and the little metal parts of his belts, and I think the backpack has some bits as well. The Power Fist also has a little power coil behind it next to the wire that I'm going to be painting in silver. Now, if you've painted any Space Marines, you are familiar with the bolter parts that are silver, the barrel, the clip or the magazine, and then the back part was the silver parts. Then in the backpack, you've got the vents and the two little exhaust ports, the little round balls there. I just want to take a moment to thank all of you for checking out this video, for watching. If you want to support my channel and support my work, help me continue to leave the lights on and producing quality content like this, then I hope you consider becoming a channel member for as little as $2.99 a month. It's not completely altruistic because I do offer free digital downloads to help you with your painting projects on my Discord. As soon as you become a channel member, I grant you access to all of the files like the recipe cards, project logs, calendars, and all sorts of things like that. So becoming a channel member is it helps me out, and I hope it also gives you some tools that you can use in your own painting journeys. You can also purchase a super thanks or a super sticker, and I would greatly appreciate that as well. I am really trying to make a go of this as a YouTuber, and I do not have a studio. I do not have lots of great equipment. I'm a one-man studio here, so any support that you can send my way is greatly appreciated. What I'm doing now is I'm taking black Templar and I'm painting it as a glaze over all of these areas that have a little bit of bleed over from the white paint or the Celestra gray paint. So that's the Templar cross, the pointy parts of each arm of the Templar cross, as well as the rims or the edges of the shoulder pad. And don't worry too, it's going to be a constant game of back and forth between the black paint and the white paint, and the black paint and the white paint. So the important thing is that you paint all of the most egregious bleed through areas, bleed over areas, and then from there you decide what you can live with and how much you can forgive. There is definitely, like, I'm not a golden demon painter. I'm not going to win any awards for my painting. What I try to teach my audience is how to paint at a very respectable, high tabletop quality that you can be happy with, that you can knock out in an hour so that you can get on with the rest of your life. And I hope that's why you are checking out these videos, to see how I do everything. And you can also look at my back catalog. I've got so many video tutorials and I'm trying to get back to them, but I'm also doing a lot of YouTube shorts, doing a lot of quick tutorial clips for people who don't have the time to sit through one of these longer videos. Again, using a fine detail brush like the Golden Maple size 2/0, it's really helpful for blocking in those colors, and I just cannot recommend it enough. Now we're moving on to Corax White, and you don't have to mix this with the Celestial Gray. It can go right over it. It's a great color. You just thin it down, make sure it doesn't go on thick and gloopy. I think I put a little too much onto my brush here, and I can tell just from using it here that I'm going to need to wipe some of it off, maybe go in a little bit cleaner and with less paint. It's one of those things though, you have to really experiment and see for yourself how much are you comfortable using on your paintbrush, and the rest of it you can just clean it off and not feel guilty about it. I used to feel guilty. I used to feel like I was wasting paint if I thinned it down and diluted it and I didn't use all of it immediately. It's one of those little painting quirks and tics that you kind of get over the more you paint and the more practice you get. You know, it's funny, I used to really want to have a Black Templar army, but I didn't want to paint all of the white shoulder pads. I thought it was the worst part of the army, like the worst part of their aesthetic was the white shoulder pads with the Black Templar crosses on them. And now that I'm actually doing it, I can say that they are pretty bad. They do stink, but doing it is actually not as bad as I thought it would be. And looking at the model, it's coming along pretty nicely. You can see that I switched paint colors now. I've gone back to the Black Templar, so I'm really just blocking out the colors. And that's what it is with these shoulder pads. You decide, can I live with it in its current state, or do I want to make another go? Do I want to make another pass with the Black Templar and then the Corax White? And speaking of crusades and crusading knights across the galaxy, if you are working on any projects this summer, if you're trying to clear your backlog, or you've decided to dive into a new army or a new game system, I hope you consider joining my Discord and taking part in our Grey Crusade 2025. It is a worldwide goal that I've set to try to paint 5,000 miniatures with as many people joining the Discord as possible. So if you want to take part in that, if you would like to get some work done, then please join the Discord and sign up for the Grey Crusade. Commit to painting something this summer. We've got till the end of August to paint 5,000 miniatures, and I'm really excited to see what everybody else out there in the community is doing. All right, back to painting these shoulder pads. The philosophy behind the highlighting for the Templar crosses is basically you take this Black Templar cross and then you build up the colors with Eshin Gray here, and then Celestial Gray is the second highlight color. Now the way that I do it is I get a little bit of Eshin Gray on the tip of my brush, and then I paint 1/2 of each arm of the Templar's cross. Now ideally you want it to be the arm that's closest to the light source. So in the case of this right arm here, it would be the upper half of the Templar arm at the top, and then the top half of the Templar arm on the right side. Basically, you're just looking for whichever side is closest to the light. Now, I am taking a little bit of my Necro Gold paint because I saw that that Templar cross has a little skull at the center of it, and I want to make sure that stands out. Now, I'm using my Celestial Gray. I'm thinning that down on my wet palette, and I'm putting just a really fine highlight inside the Eshin Gray paint that I already laid down. This two-step process is going to give you the illusion of light reflecting off of the Templar arm. If you feel like it's a little too bright, like there's a little too much light colored gray paint, and you think that it takes away from the black Templar cross, quote unquote, then just go back with some black Templar and use that contrast paint to dull down those gray colors. Okay, so now what I'm going to be doing is taking Wraithbone, and I'm going to be using this on the tabard. Now I switched over to my size 2/0 golden maple brush, and what I'm doing is I'm taking that Wraithbone and I've mixed it with Rakarth Flesh, which is the base color of these tabards, and I'm doing diagonal slashes from the upper right to the bottom left. This is going to be the start of our coarse sackcloth texture. This technique, I love this for the Black Templars, for any monastic order that's using thick, heavy cloth for their tabards. It really makes them pop and stand out, and it's really breathtaking. So now I'm going to take my Corax White, I'm going to mix it into the Wraithbone, and I'm going to be doing opposite diagonal cross hatches the other way. And the idea is that your Rakarth Flesh tabard is going to be built upon by the Rakarth Flesh and Wraithbone mix, those first original diagonal lines, and now these bright white and Wraithbone slashes going in the opposite direction is what really pops the design and makes it stand out. So you've got 3 successive highlights going in different directions. It's really a great effect from the tabletop distance away, and especially when you pick up the model and you look at it, you're going to see the buildup of the color and the brightness of those paint slashes. This is really where you want to see those individual paint strokes. Not often do you want to see this on a flat surface area on your model, but on the sackcloth, potato sack texture, this is really perfect for that. All right, now what we're doing is we're painting in the belts with Mournfang Brown. If you've seen me do my neophyte videos, you'll see that the Mournfang Brown is kind of like a unifying color across all of their belts / pouches on their waists. And it's terrific that the sculpts for the initiates and the neophytes all have this unifying element in that they've all got these weird belts strapped across their waists with pouches and buckles and hooks and all sorts of things, silver rings and all sorts of stuff. So your Mournfang Brown, again, using that size 2/0 golden maple brush, you're going to be able to get into all of these small areas, like over the hip side armor, as well as the belt at the center as the back. Now we're gonna let that dry for just a second, and then we're gonna come back in with some Scrag Brown. That's gonna be our only highlight. We're not gonna be doing any shades or any washes, but we're gonna let that dry for a little longer before we get to that Scrag Brown. Now I'm just building up the color, doing a second thin coat of Mephiston Red on the Templar Cross on the Power Fist, the personal heraldry on the shield, and then the bolt pistol. Now you can see, because the first layer of Mephiston Red on the bolt pistol was kind of spreading out and diluting and just looked a little too thin on the bolt pistol. You could see that black primer coat underneath. This second coat is going to build up that red color, that vibrant red color, and it's going to give us the perfect launch pad for the next highlight, which is going to be Evil Sun Scarlet. So while we let that dry, we're going to go back onto Scrag Brown. Now this is essential that you have a brush with a good tip for this part, because what you're going to be doing is painting the 2 sides, the top and the bottom of every single belt. And if you don't have a brush with a good point, if you have a thick brush or a brush that's starting to split at the ends, this is going to be really difficult. But if you have a good brush like my size 2/0 golden maple detail brush, then you're going to hit both of those folded areas on the top and the bottom, and it's going to look really nice. Those belts look so good when they have Scrag Brown on the top and the bottom, creating those 2 bright lines. It's gonna make that leather just sing. And now what I'm doing is I'm taking my Corax White and I'm doing the script work on the Purity Seal on his hip. And if you get those lines a little too thick, if they go on a little messy, they don't really look like script, but rather just heavy, fat gloopy lines of paint, just go back in with your Mephiston red and with a fine tipped brush, shorten those white lines. Press that red color in between and kind of push those white lines of script so that they start to look thinner and more like script and less like squiggly white lines of paint. Now we're building up that Evil Sun Scarlet into the Mephiston red, and you can see it really kicks up the color and it leaves that darker reddish tone underneath, especially over the black primer, but it really pops out all of the edges, all of the raised areas. And I love Evil Sun Scarlet for highlighting red, but keeping that red color without going into orange. So now we've colored the bolter, the bolt pistol casing, the personal heraldry, and what I'm going to be doing now is taking that Evil Sun Scarlet and dotting it into the eye lenses, as well as touching up the red Templar's cross on his power fist. Now the eye lenses are going to be Mephiston red, Evil Sun Scarlet, and then we're capping that off with Wild Rider red and a little dot for the eyeballs. There's that Wild Rider red I just mentioned. Take a little bit of it, put it onto your wet palette. Now you're not going to be using much, but you have to have a brush with a good tip on it. All of these final steps of this tutorial really rely on you having a brush with a good sharp point, because if not, you're not going to be able to get into the areas that you need to, and you're not going to be able to do the delicate brush work that needs to happen. For example, the Wild Rider red here, just touching up the bolt pistol, touching up the heraldry and the red Templar cross, and now coloring that glowing effect into the eye lenses. That first color, Mephiston red, we did a while ago. It was there to lay the groundwork, and then we focused those eye lens colors with Evil Sun Scarlet, and now that Wild Rider red just really makes it sing. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're taking Averland Sunset and we're painting the yellow wire, or we're painting the wire yellow rather on the back of the power fist. This is going to be our base color for the hazard stripes that we're going to do. Now, you might say, well, what if we just start with black, since it's already black, and then paint that yellow onto the wire? I found that when you're actually working with a black paint on a yellow background, it helps you to see it a little bit easier than if you're starting with a black wire and then painting stripes of yellow. So you could be different. It might work for you to do it the other way around. I'm just telling you which method I learned and got comfortable with and can now pass off as pretty proficient. So this is the way I do it. I start with Averland Sunset Yellow on the wire. Then I take my black acrylic paint. You saw that I showed off my Mars Black acrylic paint tube of paint. So you're just taking that black paint on the tip of your brush, and what I do is I hold it at one angle and I paint all the lines in that direction. Then I turn the miniature so that I can continue those lines across the yellow. What this does is I'm not stuck doing one line at a time, turning the model all the way around. I'm just looking from one direction and hitting all of those black lines so that I can get a good even spacing. Then I'm turning the model, continuing all of those lines, and basically just extending all of the lines until they go around the wire. This is the best way to do it and ensure that you have the least amount of mistakes that you have to go back and clean up. Because what you're going to be doing is going back with the Averland Sunset and evening out all of those yellow sections in between the black lines. And then if you're comfortable with them, like me, like I am, you take some Flash Gets Yellow and thin it down and then highlight all of those yellow sections. Now, Flash Gets Yellow is a very bright yellow, whereas Averland Sunset is a more muted yellow. So you might not want to go this bright, but I found that off of the black and white of the Black Templar, this little kick of color is a really nice contrast. If you want your miniatures to look more grim dark and more utilitarian, then maybe you don't need to have that Flash Gets Yellow. The most important and most fun part of this is taking a line of Celestra Gray and following down like a snake down the wire. You're just going to paint a single line that goes down and mimics or suggests the idea of a reflection. as if the wires were shiny and catching the light there. All right, now what I'm doing is I'm seeing some more areas on the Templar crosses on the shoulder pads that I could clean up. A little bit of that black Templar paint bleeding over onto the white shoulder pad. So I'm just cleaning it up with Celestra Gray, and then I'm gonna go back with Corax White. Again, like I mentioned earlier, this is the most tedious part about painting these miniatures. It's the black Templar cross on the white background with the black shoulder pad edges and rim. But once you get it, it becomes like second nature. You're gonna have an easier time painting these shoulder pads. And like I said, luckily Celestra Gray and Corax White are terrific colors with great coverage, and they're nothing at all like using Games Workshop's old white Scar. What a nightmare that was to work with. This Corax White is really great, but if you want to go even brighter, or you want to add a little bit of vibrancy and pop to these white shoulder pads, I would highly suggest using Pro Acryl's bold titanium white and mixing that into your Corax White or your Celestra Gray, and using those as a top highlight to really show the contrast between the brightest white part of those shoulder pads and the more grayish areas in the recesses and in the shadows. Now I'm really just enforcing that white color using Corax White to unify all of the Celestra Gray parts that I've painted on to block out the black of the Templar's cross. And I'm just really enjoying how he's looking. We're really closing in on the end here, and I'm just using a little bit of that white Corax White paint to dot the islands and to suggest a little bit of a reflection from the light source, and also a little bit of focus to those islands, as he really looks great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Geek Gaming basing glue, which is basically just Elmer's glue or white PVA glue, and I'm going to take my toothpick here and just spread it out across the base. Basing glue like this, the Geek Gaming basing glue, it's terrific because it's not as thick as an Elmer's glue right out of the tube, and you don't have to worry about it creating too thick of a surface, and it has great spread and great coverage. Just use a little tool like this. You could also use like your hobby tools or your sculpting tools just to spread this white glue around on the base. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Grim Dark City Rubble base ready scatter, just dip him in there, tap off the base a little bit, and there you go, another Primaris initiate to join the Primaris Crusader squad. I've only got 2 more guys left to paint. I'm really excited. We're closing in on the end of this squad, and there's so much variety. It all looks great. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button. Leave me a comment before you go. Subscribe if you're not already. We shall see you in the next one. Templar!